Round 13 of the URC, and there's big matchups everywhere you look. My name's Mark. Let's talk rugby. So this weekend's fixtures, everywhere you look, there are games that have, that feel very significant for both teams involved. It's hard to find one that doesn't have an impact on at least one or both of the teams involved in the matchup in terms of their ambitions for the rest of the season. This could be the kickoff point for a team to go on a run. It's a chance to get a win against a rival, or it's just a chance to maybe put in a performance. And then on the flip side, it's maybe where people will look back and say that's where our season came unstuck or something like that. So I think there's a lot of big matchups, and we start with the biggest matchup of the weekend. It's Leinster versus the Bulls. It's on Friday, March 29th. Kickoff is 7:35. It's first versus second. It's on in the RDS. So we're looking at these two teams. Between them, they've only lost like 5 games between them all season. So neither team used to losing, and we look at the form book, we can see that as well. Both teams only lost once in the last 7 games, and Leinster on a 3-game winning streak, Bulls on a 4-game winning streak. So one of those streaks is coming to an end, and it's gonna be, in terms of that table as well, either a chance for Leinster to start kind of pulling away from the pack, or for the Bulls to, potentially overtake them at the top of the table. That's how close it is at the minute. And, Leinster, with a lot of their Irish contingent back, Bulls have a very strong team as well. And it just feels like a really epic clash. It's similar to last year, I think, when Leinster were entering the Stormers that was at the RDS as well, right? Yeah. And the Stormers got out to in the end, like, to a fairly big lead. Leinster pegged them back, and then it ends up in a draw. And that's kind of, that's how I think this game is going to be as well, because the Bulls have definitely been the best of the South African teams. Leinster have been, leading the table now for the last, I don't know how many rounds, maybe, because it took them a while to recover from that opening, weekend defeat to Glasgow, but it feels like they've been leading the table now for at least 6 or 7 rounds, right? And with the two of these teams as well, this feels significant in terms of momentum going into the run into the season and into the knockout stages as well. We got like a third of the league part of the season left, and then we just have those, potentially 3 knockout games after that, right? Quarterfinal, semi-final, final. And there are two teams who are used to being at the sharp end, but also two teams who in the last couple of seasons have had chances to get their hands on silverware in this competition and haven't been able to do it. Leinster have been the favourites going in to knockout stages for the last 2 seasons, and they've fallen at the semi-finals. Whereas the Bulls got to the final 2 seasons ago, lost out to the Stormers. So both teams will feel like that their potential in this competition the last couple of seasons hasn't quite been fulfilled, and there's just unfinished business for them. And these are the type of games where players are going to be up for it. They're going to want to make a statement, put down a mark, or whatever way you want to call it. And looking at this, the way it's shaping up, it feels like it's going to be an epic clash, and it's going to be a close one. And it's going to have that kind of feel of, more of a Champions Cup type game rather than just a regular URC game. I think it's going to be kind of at that level in terms of the intensity and in terms of just, neither team feeling like they're out of it if they're behind as well. I think whichever team takes a bit of a lead, the other team are going to hit back at them and hit back at them hard as well. So I'm really looking forward to this one. I'm going to be covering it on the channel. And in terms of the prediction for it, it's difficult, but I'm a Leinster fan, so we're going to go for Leinster to pip it. On my on my Super Brew prediction, I've gone for Leinster by 12, but in my head I'm saying, like, how are Leinster going to be that far ahead? I'm thinking the only way I can justify it in terms of logic is that maybe Leinster winning by like 5 or 7 points and they get a breakaway try as Bulls are trying to, get that try to actually either tie it up or to win the game. Other than that, I can't see why the margin would be that wide, but I've found a Super Brew, you have to play it differently than you would in terms of just thinking about, logically what the result is going to be. So, but yeah, I do think Leinster are going to win it. I don't think it's going to be by that margin. I think it's probably going to be a score between the teams in the end. So, but yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that and looking forward to covering on the channel as well. Also on Friday, at the other end of the table, we have a hugely significant game too. So kicking off at the same time, we have Dragons versus Zebre. This is 16th versus 15th at Rodney Parade. So this is basically last versus second last in the league. And unless, depending on what happens in the Sharks game on, depending on what happens in the Sharks game on Saturday, I think the Sharks are playing, right? Yeah, they're playing on Saturday. The loser of this game is probably going to end up at the bottom of the table. So that's how significant this is as well. You got the Dragons, who look like, I feel like as a team, they've lost their way now at this point and are just kind of marking time until the end of the season almost. It feels like there's no kind of direction in terms of, or no real kind of ambition about kind of trying to improve, etc. Obviously, that's not true. Players, coaches, etc., all fans, they want their team to improve, and it's not like they're not going to be making the effort to do that. But it just feels like, compared to the other teams, that the Dragons, they've been down there for a while. They haven't really put in a performance where you thought that they were unlucky to lose the game for a very long time. Whereas Zebre, they've been putting into the performances, and they've got their win. They got a draw this year, but now this is a big challenge for them. Looking at that, when was the last time Zebre went away from home and there was at least a thought about, are they the favourites for this game? I can't remember in a long, long time when that was the case. But on this one, I would say that in terms of just form this season and performance this season across the two teams, Zebre would be the favourites. Now, normally you would say that because I still believe Zebre at home in Parma, they can give, all the big guns, even in the league, they can give them a game, right? But when they go away from home, the performance drops off. But then Dragons at home, you don't feel like they can give, as much of a game to oppositions that Zebre have been doing this year. So that's why I feel like the whole idea of Zebre going away and not performing could be set aside for this one, because they potentially, they're going up against a team who are not performing as well as them, either at home or away, and therefore they should be slight favourites for this one. But I think this is going to be a close one. If you look at the form book, neither team is obviously in great form, otherwise they wouldn't be down there. But like, Dragons have won 1 of the last 7. Zebre have lost their last 7 games. I don't know how far back that losing streak stretches. I think they drew. I think the one before that was the draw that they had this year, right? So I think it is 7 in a row that they've lost. And then Dragons are on a 3-game losing streak. So one of them is going to break their losing streak at least in this one. And I'm plugging for Zebre to just about come out. I'd love to see the Dragons actually performing and getting a result, but we'll see what actually happens in the game. But yeah, I'm plugging for Zebre to win again, maybe by about a score. Okay, so that's our Saturday games. That's our Friday games. Onto the Saturday games then. So we have the clash of the green teams here. We got Benetton versus Connacht, and it's the early games. Kickoff is 1 o'clock. It's 10th versus 9th, so very close in the table, and it's at Stadio Monego. So this one here again feels hugely significant because, you know, if you look at the table, you have Connacht and Benetton both on 33 points. Somebody's going to come out with a win, and they're going to be in that hunt for those playoff places. The team that loses, though, is going to find themselves, you know, probably once everything, the dust settles and wherever, find themselves 2 or 3 points away from, you know, that 8th place spot where they at least want to be, right? Whereas the winners are going to be probably somewhere in those top 8, depending on how the results go. So that's how significant this is. It's 2 teams who had decent starts to the season, but have kind of lost their way a little bit in the last little while and are now trying to get their seasons back on track. If we look at it, like, Benetton have won 4 of the last 7 games. Connacht have won 3 of the last 7. Benetton, though, are on a 3-game losing streak. Connacht were on a 3-game winning streak and felt like they were actually starting to recover from the dip that they had. And then they had that loss against the Lions, that really bad loss against the Lions, where they were playing against 14 men and just got absolutely destroyed in that game. So their confidence is going to be low. Benetton, you know, you don't lose 3 games in a row and be bouncing about happy with your confidence levels either. So both teams, I think, coming into this on low confidence. And normally I would back an Irish team, but I'm plugging for Benetton for this one. I think Benetton might win this one by maybe 10 points plus, because I feel like we've seen with Connacht where their defense really was a shambles against the Lions, and that's something that needs to be sorted out. But then, you know, we're not seeing as much of them in attack as we're used to either. We're not seeing that kind of back and forth, you know, tries for each team, etc. from them. So I think Connacht maybe almost need to hit a reset button to get themselves back on track. But we'll see. Maybe this is going to be the reset here. Maybe a win away against Benetton just gives them that lift. And, you know, over there in Treviso, they don't have kind of, sometimes, you know, not having the pressure of performing at home can be good too. So we'll see how that goes. But for me, yeah, I'm plugging for a Benetton win in that one. On to our next game then, and it is the Sharks versus Edinburgh. So Sharks, they got that win against Ulster last time out, and, you know, that lifted them off the foot of the table for the first time in forever. And, you know, it was a well-deserved win too. It wasn't like kind of a lucky win. The performance that I thought that they had in them, they finally produced it. And now they're facing Edinburgh, who are in 6th place. And, you know, that's a decent position in the table, but Edinburgh were, you know, up in the top 4 and looking like they were going to potentially stay with that, you know, group of 3 at the top. Now they dropped down a little bit. And if they lose here again, potentially because of how tight it is, could actually find themselves out of the playoff places, you know, and that's the way it is. If you have a couple of bad results at the moment in this league, you're going from, you know, potentially having a home quarterfinal to not even making the playoff places. So we've got 14th versus 6th, as I said, in the table. If we look at the form, so the Sharks have won 2 of the last 7. They were on a 5-game losing streak before beating Ulster last time out. Edinburgh have won 4 of their last 7. They were on a 3-game winning streak before losing last time out. So kind of almost the form of the two teams flipped in the last round. So Edinburgh obviously going to be hoping that it'll flip back for them. And it's kind of difficult in this one in terms of just picking the winner, because generally I would say like that, any of the South African teams at home, you back them to win. And then I think if Edinburgh had been coming on into this one on, like, if they had won last time out and they were coming in like on a 4-game winning streak, then I would be thinking, okay, well, I've got to back Edinburgh for this, but I'm going to go for the Sharks. But again, it's going to be close. I think there's just going to be a score between the teams on that one. Okay, next then we have Ospreys versus the Lions. So this one is, so the last two were at 1 o'clock on Saturday. This one is at 3:05 on Saturday. It's 11 versus 8, and it's at the Swansea.com stadium. So you've got two teams who, have been in a similar position over the last few weeks, in that they were just outside the playoff places and they knew that they had to get wins to keep that alive. The Lions have been, doing that. Ospreys have got a win in there as well, but not going quite as well as the Lions. But this is a good chance for them really to reignite their season. And, it's a big game. Again, it's another big game for these teams, because, we look at the form. So Ospreys have won 4 of the last 7, but they've lost the last 2 on the bounce. And then the Lions have won 5 of the last 7. They've won the last 2 on the bounce. So it's another one of these ones where kind of the form has kind of turned, from one team to the other. And, the Lions have been just steadily, working their way up the table. Like in terms of like South African teams, you would have looked at kind of, the Bulls being up there all the time. The Stormers have kind of dragged themselves back up that table, but the Lions have just been, kind of under the radar a little bit, just ticking away, picking up results and just about, getting over one team and then the next, etc. And now they got themselves in that 8th position. But Ospreys potentially, if they win this, they could potentially leapfrog the Lions and be above them in the table. Doesn't mean that they're going to jump up to 8. They could leapfrog them and then end up in like 9th or 10th or something, depending on, again, how other results go. But it's a really good chance for them. For the Lions, I think a win here for them, would be kind of have a double whammy for them, because one, it would be a body blow to a team that are a rival of theirs to get into that, into the top 8. And the second is that just keep momentum going themselves. And they know, because of how, the way other teams are matched up this weekend, that they could cement their place a little bit, more firmly in that top 8 as well. So for this one, because Ospreys have performed so well at home recently, and the Lions have, they did have that win, amazing win against Connacht last time out, and they're obviously going to be coming in on a big high. But I'm going to go for Ospreys in this. The Lions, last year, the European tour went really well for them. This year, not so much, but maybe it's still possible that, that Connacht result wasn't just kind of a one-off thing for them either. I'm not saying that in terms of that I don't think they can perform to that level. I just feel like that it really was an exceptional performance from them. And maybe they can do it again in Ospreys. Ospreys, they haven't kind of destroyed many teams, and we saw even against Munster, Ospreys were clearly on top in the set piece, and they had most of the ball, most of the territory, and couldn't finish. Whereas Lions has shown that you give them a chance, they're going to finish it, and it's going to be a close one. And I'm almost talking myself out of backing Ospreys win, but I've already said an Ospreys win, so I'm going to keep with that. But now my brain is saying you're wrong. The Lions are going to win, but my prediction is Ospreys. Okay, so on to next, and then it's the Stormers versus Ulster, another massive game. You know, champions 2 years ago, the team who, you know, everyone thought were going to be making finals and potentially winning trophies up until kind of the turn of the year last year, or last season, like the turn of the year during last season, so like a year and a half ago. And then we saw the first wobbles from them, and, you know, those wobbles continued and ended up in, you know, we've got the Dan McFarlane left, and then the CEO of Ulster Rugby stepped down as well. So it's been a massive change for Ulster, and, you know, they would have thought going down there with Richie Murphy, new coach, that if they could get that win against the Sharks, it would be a successful tour for them. Now they've coming on into this on the back of defeat to the Sharks instead, and you just can't you can't see, even like I think an Ulster team going well, it would still be very difficult for them to beat the Stormers. I think in South Africa, it would be like a big statement win for them if they could do it. So because of that, like, and we'll have a look actually before I make the prediction that you now know I'm going to make, but we look at the form. So Stormers have won 5 of the last 7, and they've only got like 1 loss in the last 6. Whereas Ulster have won 3 of the last 7, but they lost 2 of the last 3. So you can see that the form book is certainly with the Stormers, and they're at home as well. So I'm going to go for the Stormers to win it. And I don't think the Ulster are going to push them that much either. I think Ulster might have a purple patch and maybe score some nice tries. But I don't see Ulster really pushing them right to the death in this. And I think the Stormers, coming into that last kind of 5 minutes or so, will kind of have the game sewn up. And, you know, you might see an Ulster consolation try or something like that for a losing bonus point. But I don't think we're going to see the Stormers kind of having to cling on at the end or having to try and come back against Ulster at the end either. So going for a Stormers win in that one. Next then, we have the kind of evening kickoffs then, the last 2 games of the round. So the first one kicking off at 7:35 is Scarlets versus Glasgow. So this is 13th versus 3rd. It's at Parky Scarlets. So, you know, Scarlets, you look at them and you think like, well, they don't really have anything to play for, do they? Like this season. So it should, on paper, you're thinking, well, Glasgow should definitely win that one. But, you know, things don't always go the way that we think. But if we look at the, you know, at the form again, Scarlets 2 win from the last 7. They did win last time out though. Glasgow won 5 of the last 7. They have 3 wins on the bounce as well. And again, winning, it's that habit of winning. It's almost hard to lose when you're on that kind of roll. And things have to go majorly against you. But the thing that I think in terms of Scarlets is that they did get that win last time out. They're now top of that mini group, the bottom 4, the top of that group, and they're going to want to stay there. They're going to want to, you know, want to get momentum going into next season. There's no chance of them making playoffs. All it is now is about trying to, you know, look at the end of the season and say, okay, let's try and, you know, finish better than we've done for the rest of the season. So I think for Scarlets, for them would be like there's 6 games left in the regular season. If they could win 2 of those, I think that would be an improvement on the way they've been kind of, certainly at the start of the season. The middle of the season was kind of similar. They won 2 of 6 games. So at least to be able to win at least 2 games from the last 6. Don't finish the season kind of again going back down on a downward trend. You want to be going, you know, at least feeling like you're on an upward trend. And getting a win against someone like Glasgow really would lift that squad of players as well. But you look at Glasgow, squad, and I feel like they've got enough talent in there to go to Scarlets against this Scarlets team and do the business and get their win. So for this one, I think it's one where maybe it's going to be tight kind of early on, but Glasgow, I think their finishing power is going to be enough to get them over the line, and I'm going to go for a Glasgow win there. So, and then because of that, if Glasgow do win, it means that they'll know by the time it comes to this game, obviously, which of the two, who's won between Leinster and the Bulls, and they'll also know what they need to do to get themselves up into that second spot. So I think we're probably going to see Glasgow, either tied for second or in second by the end of this weekend. And then the final game that we have then is Munster versus Cardiff. So this one again is at 7:35 on Saturday. It's 4th versus 12th, and it's at Thomond Park. So we've seen defending champions Munster, very similar to the Stormers, really lost a bit of form. They were down there, potentially if they kept going on the same trajectory, weren't going to make the playoffs. Now they've clawed their way back up that table, and now they're in 4th place. So they're top of the pile in terms of those teams that are really close together. But we also know, because we've seen it round on round, team can be up there one round and next round they've dropped 3 or 4 places in the table. This is how tight it is. But Munster, Thomond Park, they're playing a Cardiff team that we've spoken about before. They're young guys that have lots of potential, but they still don't have that kind of nous and that kind of stickability to be able to pull off big wins. It doesn't mean that it's never going to happen for them. And that's the thing, right, is that for a group of, a squad, a group of players, that first big win just seems like it comes out of the blue, and it doesn't. It's because they've put in, mountains of work, and talented players have kind of, come together, and they've all performed together. And there's a lot of work that, over months and sometimes years that go into those kind of performances. But the first one, in terms of just, if you're looking at the status quo, does still feel like it comes out of nowhere. So, but I still don't feel that it's going to be at Thomond Park. We've got a Munster team who last week came out with a bonus point win against an Ospreys team, by, clearly being the second best team on the field that day. And they had a couple of intercept tries. They had one really, their first try was really well worked, I felt. But then in the set piece, they were kind of second best for most of the game. They turned around towards the end, that kind of last quarter. They got parity in the scrum. Line out was working a bit better too. But at home, you feel like they're going to be a little more in control of things. They're going to have more territory, more possession. And those issues that they had in set piece should be ironed out a little bit this week as well. If we look at the form guide as well, so got Munster have won 4 of their last 7. They're on a 3-game winning streak. Cardiff have won 2 of their last 7 on a 4-game losing streak. So looking at all of that, I think it's going to be, in the end at least, a comfortable win for Munster, maybe by a couple of scores. So that's a look ahead to this weekend's URC. Again, massive games going on all over the place. Tonight I want to watch the Leinster game, so I'm going to be covering that on the channel. Tomorrow, there's a lot to pick from, but I won't, like the early games, there's a few I'd love to cover, but I'm going to be working, so I won't get to cover those. So I'm going to probably cover the Munster Cardiff game as well. So those are the 2 that I'm hoping to cover. Sometimes I set my goal at like 2 or 3 games for a weekend. I end up only being able to watch one live. So we'll see how that works out. But whatever happens, we're still going to have a review of the entire round on probably on Monday. So have a look out for that. And we're also going to have a preview of the Women's Six Nations games for round 2 coming up later out today as well.